Desire. It begins as a whisper so subtle that we almost miss it. A glance across the room. A passing figure. An inexplicable pull towards someone whose very presence unsettles us. Unlike hunger or thirst, which point us directly toward survival, sexual attraction has no obvious logic. It is not simply about reproduction. It is not simply about pleasure. It is something darker, more mysterious. A force that moves us even when we don't understand it, even when it ruins us. Why do we desire? It is a question human beings have asked for centuries, and yet it remains forbidden. We talk endlessly about love, about romance, about sex, but desire itself, the raw magnetic pull between two human beings, is rarely explored honestly. Because when we do, we uncover truths that are not comforting but dangerous. Carl Jung once wrote, "What you resist persists. Nowhere is this more true than with desire. What we push away, what we repress, does not disappear. It festers. It hides in the unconscious only to emerge later in distorted and destructive ways. Sexual attraction, when denied or shamed, does not vanish. It intensifies. The more we attempt to rationalize it, the more irrational it becomes. This is why desire feels so threatening. It operates outside the neat categories of reason and morality. It does not obey our will. It pulls us toward people we should not want. It lingers for years in secret fantasies we cannot speak aloud. It attaches itself to qualities we cannot fully name. And it often appears at the very moments we believe we are in control. Unlike the simple needs of the body, desire has its roots in the psyche. It is as much about imagination as it is about flesh. It is about projection, what we see in another person, often without realizing that what attracts us is not only them, but something within ourselves, long forgotten. The mystery of desire unsettles us because it exposes how little power we have over ourselves. A single encounter, a fleeting moment can hijack our thoughts, redirect the course of our lives, and even dismantle everything we once thought stable. Entire marriages collapse, empires crumble, wars are fought, all because of this force. Jung saw sexuality not as a biological accident, but as one of the deepest symbolic languages of the unconscious. Desire, he argued, is not random. It is revealing. When we feel attraction, we are standing before a mirror. But the reflection is not of the other person. It is of our own unacknowledged depths. Desire speaks in riddles. It tells us not just who we want, but what is missing within us. And this is precisely why society often refuses to confront it. We dress desire up in simple explanations: chemistry, compatibility, fate. But beneath those words lies something raw, ungoverned, and unsettling. Something that suggests our lives are shaped not by reasoned choice but by unconscious necessity. We live in a culture that thrives on the surface of attraction. Advertisements, movies, endless swipes on dating apps. But these are distractions, designed to numb us to the truth, that desire in its purest form is a confrontation with the unconscious itself. And the unconscious is not gentle. It does not care for our comfort or our plans. It erupts, demanding attention. There is a reason so many myths and stories across history portray desire as dangerous, as the spark that unleashes chaos. Helen of Troy, whose beauty launched 1,000 ships, Cleopatra, who captivated Caesar, and Antony. Tristan and Isolde, bound by a love potion that doomed them both. These are not just stories of romance. They are parables of psychological truth. Desire unravels the illusion of control. It shows us that the psyche has forces stronger than the will. When we ask, why do we desire? We are really asking something deeper. What in me is calling out through this person? What forgotten part of myself is crying for recognition? This is why desire cannot be reduced to biology or moral rules. It is a conversation between the conscious and the unconscious, between the self we know and the self we keep hidden. The forbidden question remains forbidden because to answer it honestly is to admit that we are not masters of our own hearts. To admit that the self is not a singular entity, but a battlefield of forces, archetypes, shadows, and longings we barely understand. And yet, this is the journey we must take, to look directly into the enigma of attraction, to resist the temptation of superficial answers, to confront the possibility that every desire carries a message, not just about who we want, but about who we are. This is where our story begins, with the unsettling truth that desire is not merely about another person, it is about us. It is the shadow knocking at the door. It is the whisper of the unconscious, urging us toward recognition, integration, and sometimes destruction. Desire is life-giving. Desire is destructive. Desire is both. And until we are willing to face it honestly and without disguise, it will remain the most haunting and forbidden question of all. Why do we desire? If desire unsettles us, it is because it does not come from the part of ourselves we proudly display to the world. It comes from the shadows. Carl Jung believed that within every human being there exists a hidden counterpart, the shadow. It is not evil in itself, though it often contains impulses we label as dark or unacceptable. Rather, it is simply everything we reject, deny, or cannot yet accept as part of who we are. The shadow is made of qualities, longings, and instincts we exile from consciousness, pretending they do not belong to us. But what is exiled does not vanish. It waits. And it returns most powerfully in the form of attraction. We often imagine sexual desire as something we choose, that we are drawn to people because of their looks, their charm, their personality. But Jung suggested something far stranger, that desire is often the unconscious recognizing itself in another. We are pulled toward people not for who they are, but for what they represent, qualities we have lost, repressed, or never allowed to live within ourselves. Think of the timid man who becomes obsessed with a bold, fiery woman, or the controlled, disciplined woman who finds herself magnetized by a reckless, chaotic lover. These attractions feel irrational, even dangerous, yet they burn with an intensity that cannot be explained away. Jung would say, "This is the shadow at work. What we suppress in ourselves we are doomed to chase in others." This is why desire often feels like recognition. The first meeting with someone who stirs us deeply can feel uncanny, as though we already knew them. But what we are really meeting is not them, but ourselves. The hidden parts of the psyche projected outward like a film onto their body, their voice, their eyes, Jung wrote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Nowhere is this more visible than in love and lust. How often do we say, "I couldn't help it, I just fell for them"? How often do we mistake the compulsion of the unconscious for destiny? The shadow does not speak in words, it speaks in attraction. It guides us, not with reason, but with an irresistible pull. It leads us into relationships that awaken our missing fragments, sometimes to heal us, sometimes to break us. Every time we fall under its spell, we are being invited to see ourselves more clearly. But most of us never look. We remain trapped in the illusion that it is about them, when in truth it is about us. This is why desire so often feels dangerous. To admit that attraction is rooted in the shadow is to admit that we are far less conscious, far less free, than we like to believe. We are not simply choosing partners. We are being chosen by the unconscious, compelled toward the people who hold up the mirror we have avoided. Consider the affairs that destroy reputations, the inexplicable crushes that threaten stable lives, the obsessions that derail careers and families. On the surface, these look like moral failings, like lapses of judgment. But from a Jungian view, they are eruptions of the shadow. They are the psyche's demand that we confront what we have long ignored. The tragedy is that most of us respond not by examining the message, but by doubling down on repression. We push the attraction away. We deny it. We condemn it. And in doing so, we strengthen it. The more fiercely we resist, the more powerful it becomes. As Jung warned, what you resist persists. But the shadow is not the enemy. It is simply the part of us we refuse to see. Desire exposes it in the most intimate way possible. That is why it feels so magnetic, so terrifying. We are not just longing for another person. We are longing for the part of ourselves we abandoned. To fall in desire, then, is not just to be attracted to another. It is to be confronted by our own depths. Sometimes this confrontation is healing. We awaken qualities we had buried: courage, passion, tenderness, vulnerability. But sometimes the confrontation is catastrophic. We are forced to face destructive tendencies, wounds, and addictions we hoped would remain hidden forever. The shadow makes attraction a paradox. It is both recognition and illusion. The person we desire is real, yet they are also a canvas. We paint onto them the very qualities we lack. This is why desire can feel both ecstatic and disappointing. When the projection eventually fades, when we finally see the person for who they are, we are often left bewildered. What did I ever see in them? The answer is simple, but unsettling. You saw yourself. Sexual attraction, then, is one of the psyche's strangest gifts. It reveals us by disguising us. It shows us what we long for, not by handing it to us directly, but by luring us toward another human being who carries our missing piece. The shadow, in this way, is not trying to punish us. It is trying to make us whole, but wholeness is never free. It demands that we look into the darkness without flinching, that we acknowledge the drives, fantasies, and impulses we would rather keep buried, that we take responsibility for the projections we cast onto others, instead of blaming them for being irresistible. Jung believed that true psychological growth begins the moment we stop running from the shadow. Desire, unsettling as it is, can be the doorway. If we dare to look through it, we may find not just the mystery of another person, but the mystery of ourselves, and so the enigma deepens. Sexual attraction is not random. It is not only biology. It is the unconscious, pulling us toward the face we fear the most, our own. If the shadow reveals the parts of ourselves we repress, then the anima and animus reveal something even deeper. The opposite energy within us that longs to be completed. Carl Jung proposed that every man carries within him an inner feminine image, the anima, and every woman carries within her an inner masculine image, the animus. These are not about gender roles in a cultural sense, nor are they confined to sexuality in a biological sense. They are archetypes, universal patterns of the psyche. They live in us as energies, shaping the way we see, the way we feel, and most powerfully, the way we desire. For a man, the anima might appear in dreams as a mysterious woman, seductive, nurturing, or dangerous. She embodies everything he unconsciously associates with the feminine: tenderness, creativity, emotion, or at times chaos and destruction. For a woman, the animus often appears as a chorus of male voices, sometimes wise and guiding, other times rigid, domineering, and oppressive. He embodies everything she associates with the masculine: logic, authority, strength, or, in shadow form, aggression and control. Now consider what this means for attraction. When we fall for someone, Jung suggested, it is often because they embody our inner anima or animus. That magnetic pull we cannot explain, that sense that destiny itself has orchestrated the meeting, is often the unconscious recognizing in another person the archetype we secretly carry inside. This is why love so often feels like fate. A man meets a woman who seems to awaken something ancient in him. She is not just herself, she is the projection of his anima. Likewise, a woman encounters a man whose presence feels overwhelming, as if he carries divine authority or unbearable magnetism. He is not just himself. He is her animus clothed in flesh. The danger, of course, is that we rarely realize what is happening. We believe we are falling in love with another human being. In truth, we are falling in love with the reflection of our own psyche. We are enchanted not only by who they are, but by what they symbolize within us. This explains why relationships, born from intense archetypal attraction, can feel both transcendent and destructive. At their best, they awaken us. They bring to life qualities we had long neglected. A man discovers sensitivity and creativity through the anima. A woman discovers inner strength and rational clarity through the animus. But at their worst, these relationships entangle us in illusion. We do not see the person before us. We see the archetype, the projection, the fantasy. Jung warned that these inner figures are immensely powerful, and if left unconscious, they can dominate our lives. The anima can lead a man into obsession with unattainable women, forever chasing an ideal that no real person can fulfill. The animus can lead a woman into relationships with domineering men, replaying patterns of control and submission that mask her own untapped authority. The intensity of these attractions comes not from the person themselves, but from the archetypal energy behind them. It feels bigger than us. It feels cosmic. And in a sense it is, because archetypes are not personal inventions. They are universal structures of the human psyche, shared across time and culture. This is why mythology and literature are filled with archetypal love stories. The enchanted maiden, the wise old man, the dangerous seducer, the nurturing mother. These are not just characters. They are manifestations of the anima and animus that live within us all. And when we encounter someone who embodies them in real life, we are drawn as though by a spell, but spells can be broken. The task Jung set before us was not to deny the anima and animus, but to recognize them, to see through the projection, and to realize that what we are seeking in another person is something we must also develop within ourselves. A man obsessed with the anima must awaken his own capacity for emotion, intuition, and tenderness. A woman entranced by the animus must claim her own inner authority, clarity, and strength. To fail to do so is to remain enslaved by the archetypes, forever caught in cycles of attraction and disillusionment, chasing shadows of our own psyche in the bodies of others. To succeed is to begin the process of individuation, the integration of the unconscious with the conscious, the marriage of the inner masculine and feminine. Attraction then becomes symbolic. It is not merely about who we desire, but about what within us is calling out for balance. Every crush, every obsession, every fateful love story is, in some sense, the psyche's attempt to complete itself. The anima seeks the animus. The animus seeks the anima. The outer romance reflects the inner union we have yet to achieve, and this is why love can feel like both a miracle and a trap. A miracle, because it awakens us to the wholeness we secretly seek. A trap because we mistake the outer person for the source of that wholeness, never realizing it was within us all along. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, Both are transformed. But often that transformation is not about the other person at all. It is about the hidden figures within us struggling to find form, expression, and balance. Desire in this light is not random chemistry. It is archetypal. It is the unconscious staging its timeless drama through the bodies of those we meet. And until we recognize the anima and animus within ourselves, we remain captive to their power, mistaking projection for love and illusion for truth. The question is not only, who do we desire? The deeper question is, what forgotten half of ourselves are we searching for in them? Why is it that we so often want what we cannot have? Why does desire intensify precisely at the moment it collides with prohibition? A relationship that would destroy a marriage. An attraction across an age gap condemned by culture. A longing for someone whose status, power, or very existence places them beyond our reach. These are not rare exceptions. They are patterns that repeat across history, across cultures, and within the quiet, secret lives of individuals. At first glance, we explain them away with simple answers. Rebellion, thrill-seeking, recklessness. But Jung saw something much deeper at play. For him, forbidden desire was not merely about breaking rules. It was about confronting the repressed energies of the psyche, both personal and collective. Desire for the forbidden is born from repression. What society tells us is off-limits does not simply disappear. It moves underground into the unconscious. And there, hidden in the dark, it grows in strength. Like a seed forced beneath the soil, it waits for the chance to break through. The stronger the prohibition, the stronger the craving becomes. This is why taboos fascinate us. They carry the weight of the collective shadow. The forbidden object, whether a person, an act, or a relationship, glows with a strange magnetism, not because of its inherent qualities, but because it embodies everything society has exiled. When we pursue it, consciously or unconsciously, we are not only chasing an individual, we are wrestling with the shadow of culture itself. Think of the countless stories of affairs that erupt not in spite of the danger, but because of it. Secrecy heightens the intensity. The risk becomes intoxicating. The lovers are not simply drawn to each other, they are drawn to the thrill of touching what should remain untouchable. They are drawn to the unconscious itself, disguised as another, human being. From a Jungian perspective, the forbidden is never simply external. It reflects the parts of ourselves we have banished. To be attracted to what is wrong is often to be attracted to the qualities within us that have been suppressed by family, religion, or culture. The stern and disciplined man who secretly longs for wild chaos. The virtuous woman who dreams of reckless abandon. The powerful leader who craves submission in private. Each is pulled toward what they lack, what they fear, what they have denied. But the forbidden is a double-edged sword. On one side, it offers intensity, vitality, the rush of reclaiming lost parts of the psyche. On the other side, it threatens to consume us, to collapse the fragile structures of our conscious lives. That is why forbidden desire feels both exhilarating and catastrophic. It holds the promise of self-discovery, but at the price of destruction. Jung warned that when energies are repressed, they do not disappear. They return in distorted form. In the case of forbidden desire, the distortion manifests as obsession. The more one tries to resist, the more the attraction grows. The more one denies, the more the fantasy takes over. What begins as a whisper becomes an unshakable fixation. This is why moral condemnation rarely works. You can tell yourself, this is wrong, this is dangerous. But the unconscious does not obey the rules of morality. It operates with its own logic. It seeks wholeness, not safety. It cares little for reputation, laws, or even survival. The forbidden is not attractive because it is evil. It is attractive because it carries the energy of everything we have not allowed ourselves to live. And so, when we chase it, we are not only breaking social rules, we are breaking through to the shadow side of our own psyche. But here lies the danger. If we mistake this shadow energy for the other person themselves, we lose perspective. We may destroy our lives for what was never truly about them, but about us. The thrill of the forbidden is rarely about the individual who embodies it. It is about the confrontation with what we lack, what we deny, what we fear. Jung would not tell us to repress these desires further. He would tell us to listen, to ask, what is this attraction showing me about myself? What is the part of me that has been exiled into the shadows? And how can I integrate it consciously without allowing it to consume me? The allure of the forbidden, then, is not a moral question, but a psychological one. To chase it blindly is to risk destruction. To repress it entirely is to guarantee obsession. But to face it consciously is to glimpse the hidden architecture of the psyche. We are not fascinated by the forbidden because it is dark. We are fascinated because it is ours. It is the mirror of our unclaimed depths, shimmering behind the mask of another person. And so the question remains, when you feel the magnetic pull of the forbidden, are you really desiring them? Or are you desiring the hidden life within yourself that you were never allowed to live? Every act of attraction carries more than chemistry. It carries power. It is not just that we want someone. It is that we want something through them. Status, affirmation, validation, control. Attraction is never a neutral exchange. It is a subtle negotiation of dominance and submission, of who is seen and who is made invisible. Jung believed that attraction is never purely about the other person. It is about projection, the unconscious act of placing parts of our own psyche onto another human being. When we fall in love or when we are consumed by desire, we are often not seeing the person as they truly are. We are seeing the screen onto which our unconscious has cast its images. The beloved becomes a mirror. Into their eyes we pour our deepest needs, the need to be recognized, to be completed, to be redeemed. But this mirror does not only reflect beauty, it reflects power. Whoever holds the beloved holds the key to our unconscious longings, and that key gives them influence over us. This is why sexual attraction so often becomes entangled with power struggles. It is not just two bodies meeting. It is two psyches colliding, each carrying centuries of cultural conditioning, archetypal roles, and hidden shadows. Consider the archetype of the anima in a man's psyche. When he projects it onto a woman, she is no longer just herself. She becomes the embodiment of every dream, fear, and fantasy he has buried. She gains a kind of power over him, not because of her own actions, but because of what his unconscious has placed upon her. She becomes larger than life, irresistible, terrifying. Likewise, when a woman projects her animus onto a man, he ceases to be simply an individual. He becomes the embodiment of authority, intellect, or raw power. She may love him, hate him, or oscillate between the two. But in each case, she is caught in a dance with her own psyche, disguised as another person. Attraction, then, is never just about two people. It is about two inner worlds colliding. And in this collision, power is always at stake. Whoever becomes the vessel of projection wields unconscious influence. Whoever projects becomes vulnerable, exposed, dependent. This is why relationships so often feel like battles, even when cloaked in tenderness. One partner accuses the other of holding power over them, when in truth it is their own unconscious that has handed that power away. The projection grants the other a throne they did not build for themselves, but power within desire is not always one-sided. Sometimes both partners project, creating a feedback loop of mutual intoxication. Each sees in the other not the person, but the archetype. Each becomes a god or goddess in the other's eyes, larger than life, untouchable. Such relationships can feel transcendent, but also volatile because they rest on illusion. When the projections crack, the gods fall, and the lovers are left staring at mere mortals. Yet projection does more than distort individuals. It fuels entire structures of society. Advertisements, films, and media thrive on exploiting this psychological mechanism. They project archetypes of beauty, masculinity, femininity, dominance, and seduction, and we internalize them, only to project them back onto the people we meet. Desire is weaponized, turned into a currency of control. Think of the way status magnifies attraction. A celebrity, a politician, a spiritual leader. People project power, charisma, or divinity onto them, making them magnetic far beyond their ordinary human qualities. This is not mere biology. It is projection operating on a collective scale. We are drawn not to the person, but to the archetype we unconsciously worship through them. But projection, left unchecked, is dangerous. It blinds us to reality. We give power away, sometimes to those who abuse it. We believe we are in love when in fact we are enslaved by our own unintegrated psyche. We confuse domination with devotion, control with care. Jung's solution was not to repress projection, for it is inevitable, but to recognize it. To realize, what I see in them is also within me. The strength, the beauty, the authority, the allure, these qualities are not foreign. They are part of the self, waiting to be integrated. The moment you withdraw projection, the other person is freed, and so are you. They are no longer a god, nor a demon, just a human. And you are no longer their worshiper or victim, but an individual capable of owning your own power. This is the paradox of desire. It enchants us by disguising our inner life in the face of another. But if we never see through the disguise, we remain trapped, forever giving our power away. To understand attraction, then, is to understand projection. And to understand projection is to realize every longing is a mirror. Every power struggle in desire is a struggle within the self. The question is not, who holds power over you? The question is, why did you give it away in the first place? Desire is not gentle when it is misunderstood. It is a fire, and fire, when contained, gives warmth. But fire, when denied air or guidance, burns down entire homes. History is littered with the ruins of misunderstood desire. Kings who risked kingdoms for forbidden affairs. Artists who destroyed themselves in the grip of obsession. Ordinary lives, unraveled by secrets, betrayals, and compulsions too powerful to name. We often call these stories tragedies, but in truth, they are warnings, lessons about what happens when desire is treated as a surface impulse rather than a symbolic message. From the unconscious, Carl Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Nowhere is this more evident than in the realm of sexual attraction. When we are unaware of the forces shaping our longing, we fall victim to them. We become puppets pulled by invisible strings, and then we call it destiny. Think of the countless myths and epics where desire leads to ruin. Helen of Troy, whose beauty launched 1,000 ships. Cleopatra, whose allure altered the fate of empires. Tristan and Isolde, lovers bound by a passion that could not survive the world around them. These tales endure because they echo the same truth. When desire is misunderstood, it consumes, but it is not only in ancient stories. In modern life, the same patterns repeat. Affairs that begin with fire often end in ash. The secret messages, the thrill of escape, the intensity of feeling. All of it feels transcendent, as though two souls have broken free of the world's constraints. Yet beneath it lies shadow, projection, repression, compulsion. When these forces remain unexamined, the affair becomes a slow-motion collapse, dragging not only the lovers, but families, communities, and futures into ruin. Obsession, too, is a cost of misunderstood desire. When someone becomes an object of fixation, they are rarely seen as they are. Instead, they are turned into a vessel for unmet needs. The savior, the soulmate, the forbidden fruit. The lover becomes less a person and more a symbol, and symbols have a terrible weight. Few can bear being treated as gods or demons, and so the relationship fractures under the pressure of the unconscious fantasies poured into it. This is why desire, left unexamined, so often becomes destructive. It is not simply about morality, as religions have long warned, nor about biology, as science insists. It is about blindness. To desire without self-knowledge is to hand over the steering wheel of one's life to the unconscious. And the unconscious, when ignored, does not guide with wisdom. It erupts with force. Addiction often hides in this same pattern. The compulsive pursuit of pornography, affairs, casual encounters, or toxic relationships is rarely about sex itself. It is about a desperate search for contact with the psyche's missing pieces. The addict is not seeking pleasure alone, but reunion with something lost within. And when that reunion is sought blindly, the cost is shame, isolation, and despair. The irony is that misunderstood desire rarely remains private. Its consequences ripple outward, shaping entire cultures. When societies repress sexuality, it returns in distorted forms: scandal, abuse, exploitation, obsession with celebrity. What is hidden underground always resurfaces above, but twisted, unrecognizable, more destructive. Jung warned that what you resist not only persists but grows in size. This is the heart of the tragedy. By refusing to listen to what desire is trying to say, individuals and societies alike create monsters. They treat attraction as sin or as trivial entertainment, but never as the symbolic revelation it truly is. And in this refusal, desire takes its revenge. The cost, then, is not only broken marriages or ruined reputations. It is the erosion of the soul. For every time desire is misunderstood, a chance at self-knowledge is lost. Every unexamined obsession is a mirror smashed before we can see our reflection. To misunderstand desire is to misunderstand the self. To treat attraction as mere impulse is to silence the unconscious when it is speaking its loudest. And like any silenced voice, it returns, louder, darker, more dangerous. This is why so many lives, both great and ordinary, are shaped by the same quiet tragedy. Not the presence of desire, but the refusal to understand it. The cost is not passion itself. The cost is blindness, and until we learn to listen, to hear what our longings are pointing toward, we will remain trapped in the same cycle, mistaking compulsion for freedom, mistaking obsession for love, mistaking tragedy for fate. If desire can enslave, can it also set us free? This is the paradox Carl Jung wrestled with. For if attraction is shaped by shadow, by anima and animus, by projection and repression, does that mean we are forever doomed to be puppets of forces we cannot see? Jung's answer was no. Desire does not have to be a prison. It can become a path, but only if we choose to walk it consciously. This path he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, of integrating the hidden and fragmented parts of the self. It is not about eliminating attraction nor about repressing it. It is about understanding it, listening to it, letting it reveal what we have not yet claimed within ourselves. Every attraction, no matter how irrational or inconvenient, carries a message. The woman who seems magnetic may embody a man's repressed tenderness, creativity, or vulnerability. The man who seems irresistible may embody a woman's buried strength, intellect, or wildness. When we fall under these spells without reflection, we are captured. But when we pause and ask, what part of myself am I meeting in them? The spell begins to dissolve. This is the essence of individuation, withdrawing projection, to recognize that what dazzles us in the other is also alive in us, waiting to be integrated. The anima within the man is not meant to remain hidden in a lover. It is meant to flower inside him, granting him access to sensitivity, imagination, and emotional depth. The animus within the woman is not meant to remain trapped in the figure of a man. It is meant to awaken in her, as voice, vision, and authority. In this way, desire becomes a teacher rather than a tyrant. The people we are drawn to become mirrors, revealing the qualities we have yet to embrace. Instead of losing ourselves in them, we retrieve ourselves through them. But individuation demands courage. It asks us to turn inward, to face the shadow, rather than project it. To admit that the qualities we worship or despise in others are reflections of our own psyche. This is a painful realization. It strips away the intoxicating illusions of romance and lust. The lover is no longer a god or savior. They are human, and so are we. Yet in this stripping away lies liberation. When projection is withdrawn, relationships change. They become less about possession and more about presence, less about control and more about communion. Instead of demanding that the other complete us, we meet them as whole beings. Instead of chasing illusions, we share realities. Individuation also reveals that desire is not merely personal, it is archetypal. It points us toward the universal rhythms of psyche, the eternal dance of masculine and feminine, light and shadow, creation and destruction. To engage with attraction consciously is to step into this dance without being devoured by it. It is to participate but not be consumed, yet we must be careful. Individuation is not about perfection. It is not a final state where desire no longer touches us. Even the most self-aware are vulnerable to projection, to shadow, to obsession. The difference is awareness. The individuated person recognizes when they are being pulled by forces larger than themselves. They do not blindly surrender. They ask, what is this attraction trying to show me? What part of myself have I left behind? This awareness transforms compulsion into choice. It does not make desire weaker. It makes us stronger. We can still fall in love, still feel passion, still ache for the forbidden. But instead of being enslaved, we walk beside these forces as companions. We learn from them rather than being destroyed by them. For Jung, individuation was not a luxury. It was a necessity. Without it, desire becomes a cycle of projection and disappointment, obsession and despair. With it, desire becomes a sacred dialogue between the conscious and unconscious, a guide leading us toward wholeness. The trap of attraction is real. But so is the key. And the key is recognition. Recognition that the beloved is not the missing half of our soul, but the mirror through which we discover we were whole all along. This realization does not diminish love. It deepens it. It frees love from illusion and makes it more authentic. To love consciously is to see the other as they are, without needing them to carry the weight of our unclaimed psyche. To desire consciously is to embrace the beauty of longing, without collapsing into possession or despair. Individuation does not end desire. It redeems it. It turns the darkest truth, that desire is shaped by shadow and projection, into a brighter truth, that through desire, we can recover ourselves. We are not doomed to be puppets. We are invited to be pilgrims, and the path of individuation is nothing less than the path of becoming whole. We began with a question: why do we desire? After all the theories, all the stories, all the tragedies, the truth remains elusive. Biology explains the mechanics. Society imposes its rules. Psychology offers its maps. But none of these answers fully satisfy, because desire itself resists being captured. It is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Desire is this reaction. It is the spark that transforms, the unseen alchemy of soul meeting soul. But like all alchemy, it carries danger. If misunderstood, it poisons. If honored, it heals. The darkest truth about sexual attraction is that it is not truly about the other person at all. It is about us. Every longing, every obsession, every forbidden ache is a message from within. When we desire, we do not simply reach outward. We gaze inward, into the secret chambers of our own unconscious. The other becomes the mirror in which we glimpse our shadow, our anima, our animus, our unlived life. This is why desire feels both terrifying and sacred. It unsettles us because it shows us what we lack, what we fear, what we resist. But it also awakens us because it hints at what we might become, if only we had the courage to claim it. When we ignore this truth, desire enslaves us. We become addicts, obsessives, victims of our own projections. We give our power away, mistaking shadows for gods. We call it love, or lust, or fate. But in reality, it is blindness. And blindness always extracts a cost. But when we face this truth, desire transforms. It ceases to be merely compulsion, it becomes initiation. Every attraction becomes an invitation to recognize what part of ourselves is calling out to be integrated. To ask, not, what do I want from them, but what do I need to awaken in myself? The mirror of desire is dark, yes, but only because it shows us the parts of ourselves we have not yet dared to see. And so, the question is not simply, why do we desire? The question is, will we dare to look into the mirror? For in every longing, every forbidden flame, every haunting attraction, the unconscious is speaking. It is telling us who we are, what we have lost, what we must become. The greatest danger is not desire itself. The greatest danger is refusing to understand it. Desire reveals us. It strips away our masks and confronts us with the raw truth of our own psyche. And in that confrontation lies both peril and promise. Perhaps the final lesson is this: when you look at who you desire, you are not merely seeing them. You are seeing yourself, your shadow, your missing pieces, your secret longings. Desire is not only about flesh, it is the soul's language, written in fire, and the fire will not stop burning until you learn to listen.